again, as I mentioned, the class measures actually all the way from infancy through grade 12. Of course, for early childhood, we are doing up to age 5. So these are the 3 different, essentially, manuals. So if you see these manuals either laying around in the director's office or you see the assessor come in with this, you know what it is. So we are going to be focusing on the 3 to 5, which is the pre-K age group. So class is organized in different domains. And the domains are essentially kind of like your big idea. So if we think about, you know, the different age groups and what big ideas kind of are the main focus on these age groups, they are broken down into one age group is responsive caregiving. The other age group is broken down a little further with emotional behavior support and engaged support for learning. So you can look at this as the development needs kind of becomes a little bit more that you can actually separate them out. So another age group, you can separate it out even more with emotional support, classroom organization, instructional support. And I'm sure you could guess which age groups go with which domain. The infants are responsive caregiving. We are basically looking at what their needs are and meeting their needs. Toddler, they're growing, you know, they've developed a little more, so their developmental needs are a little different. So you can separate it out where you are providing their learning as a little separate from their emotional behavioral support. Of course, all of them are essentially tied together, but you could see how that those needs are a little separated. And of course, pre-K, they're even separated even more. So why do we focus so much on interactions? So this is the basics of child development. So the impact that interactions have on children's thinking, reasoning, and communication is very, very strong. Children, according to Lev Vygotsky, one of the pioneers in early childhood education philosophy, he expressed that children learn from shared experience with others, and that their knowledge and skills are increased directly through interactions, and how every single interaction has an impact on how children feel about themselves and how they learn. So it is a key in their development with each other and also with the teacher. So interactions can be broken down into 3 different categories, as you can see right here. And these categories, you'll see, are going to be related directly to those domains that we talked about in the pre-K. The social development is really that emotional support. Behavior and classroom management is that exactly that, the classroom organization. Learning cognitive development ties directly in with that instructional support. So you see that the class tool is exactly set up in that same way that children's interactions have been set up, as we know through brain science. So again, these are the 3 different age groups. So we're going to be focused mainly in that light blue, green column on the right. So the social development is the emotional support. So within the age groups, there's more categories underneath that, which the class tool measures, which is positive climate, negative climate, teacher sensitive, regard for student perspectives. And we will get into what exactly all those are measuring in a few minutes. So, but you see that social development can be measured with in these categories. And behavioral and classroom management is shown through these indicators of behavior management, productivity, instructional and learning formats. These are, again, more categories that we see the class tool broken down into. And the final one of the categories that we talked about is the learning language and cognitive development, which is in class tool is called instructional support, and concept development, quality feedback, and language modeling are under those dimensions. And you'll hear me using those different terms. Those are the class terms. So the overarching idea is called the domain, and the ones in these boxes, we refer to them as dimensions. So what is class? So the way that I really like to describe class is to think about it as a house. So, or a building, any type of building, any type of structure. So what do you need first in order to build your structure? You need the foundation. So the foundation, again, if we look at it through the eyes of class, you see that emotional support. That's the basic. You need to build those interactions. You need to build those relationships in order to do anything else. And then, so once you have that foundation, what do you need after that? And when you're building your structure, you need the walls. So the way the walls are, you can think about it as the classroom organization. So this is where your schedule comes in, how you are prepared for your lessons, and your activities, etc. Setting that intention, your objective for the day. Those are the walls. So you've got your relationship secured with the children, and now you've got your schedules and all those different things that you have your plan ready for the day. So once you have all of that, what do we need to finalize the structure? Is the roof, of course. So the roof is the instructional support. So this kind of like encompasses everything. So now you are getting into the nitty-gritty of the learning, and you're asking all those wonderful questions, you're engaging them in conversations, and really getting them to think independently. So it's a great imagery to think about what the class is, or how the class is set up into those three different domains. So the scoring, you don't need to worry about these too much, but essentially it is a 1 through 7 scale. And we refer to them as low range, mid range, and high range, the 1 to 2, low, etc., as you can see here. And what we're really looking for, so we're looking for, how much does this happen in a classroom? How much do these behaviors happen in a classroom? Is the teacher sitting on the floor with the children? Is that happening all the time, sometimes, or frequently? So those are the type of words that we're looking at. So the words that you see right here are the ones that we're kind of thinking about as we're in the classroom to see how often it is happening. And if things are happening often, then the classroom is going to score at a high range. So it takes everything into account. So let's get into the details of the domains. So again, these are the 3 different domains for the pre-K. Emotional support is what we will start with. So emotional support, as you remember from the previous slides, have 4 dimensions, and the 4 dimensions are listed right here, and let's jump right into it. So the first one is positive climate, and within positive climate we have various indicators and behavioral markers that we measure. So we're looking at relationships. So with relationships, how the sitting part that we were talking about, is the teacher sitting at a desk by themselves or joining with the children's play, sitting at the table with them, sitting on the floor with them, really interacting with them. Matched affect really refers to if they're smiling, are you frowning? Or are you really just matching their body language? Social conversations, we don't want to just hear questions after questions after questions, but having those social conversations, because you are building the relationships, and that is the best way to build a relationship. And if you can think of your own personal relationships that you have with your adult, peers and cohorts, you don't want somebody to just constantly be asking you things, but you want to, engage in conversations. So the exact same thing we're looking for here. Positive affect, is there smiling, laughter, etc. Positive communication, are we providing appropriate affection to the children? Even if a child is not okay with physical affection, or you have restrictions with where you work on physical affections, are you providing those verbal affections and setting expectations that are positive? So we don't want to hear too many no's and don'ts, etc. Respect, if it's appropriate, are you providing those eye contact with the children? Is your voice being calm? Are you being respectful? So are you saying please and thank yous and modeling those type of behavior? Um, and do we see cooperation and sharing in the classroom with the children? So that all looks at the positive climate. So second one is the negative climate. So this is obviously things we do not want to see. We don't want to see aggression, or the key here is the escalating negativity. So there's going to be some negativity. You're in a classroom of 3 to 5 year olds. There's going to be some. But is it escalating? Meaning, does it get worse, or is it just kind of a one-time thing and it goes away? Um, and then, of course, punitive control is here, sarcasm. And this is something that we want to be very careful about, because children can read our language very, very well. So you want to make sure you're not teasing and humiliating the children. So if there is a child that you need to discipline, we're pulling them off to the side and talking to them, one-to-one, and not doing it in the group where it's not very respectful to that child. And then severe negativity is also accounted for here. So the third dimension is teacher sensitivity. And what we are looking at here is the awareness that you have of the classroom and of the children. So do you notice that a child is having a hard time understanding something, and having alternative plans for them, or going to them immediately because you see that look on their face, you see their body slumping down, whatever it is, and you are anticipating problems. So you may notice that you do not have enough paintbrushes for everybody. So what are you going to do? How are you going to plan for that and jump on it before a problem arises? Being responsive, so acknowledging those emotions and really being there for them. If somebody's really struggling with getting that car to go down that ramp, you're going to be right there with them and helping them through that, because you know that they're going to get frustrated. So you are going to provide that comfort for them. Addressing problems. So children get into conflicts. So are you there to address it right away? And even if you can't address it right away, are you there to let them know that you will be right there because you are working with somebody else right now? So this is all really based on that individual children. And the fact that you're also going to follow up. That's another key piece of this one. And student comfort. So we're looking here for verbal and nonverbal cues on whether the children are supported and they are freely participating in the classroom. Okay, and then the final one after teacher sensitivity is regard for student perspectives. So with this one, what we are looking at is, are you being flexible with your plans? Are you giving them is a child focused? And there are many choices for them, that you're not just giving them really one thing to do. And that we are giving the children responsibility. So, whether it's, having that chart on the wall, so everybody has different help, things that they do to help the classroom, or you're going to the library and the children get to carry the books to the library to be returned. So all those different type of opportunities that the children are given. And then student expression. Are the children free to express themselves, give their ideas? Does the teacher want to hear what the children have to say? That's a big piece of it. Not just that they're talking amongst themselves, but also that the teacher wants to hear it. Restriction of movement, of course, that the children are not expected to sit for any prolonged periods of time, or expected to sit in any particular way. That's also a piece that is seen here. Again, this all leads to how comfortable they are in the classroom, because it is their classroom. So they need to be able to feel free to move around. So those are the dimensions for the emotional support domain. So now we will move on to the second, oh, I'm sorry, we will watch a video that shows this in action. So as I am queuing up this video, I want you to kind of pay attention to what's happening in this is watching how the teacher is providing comfort to the child, how the teacher is acknowledging the child's emotions, and also how the teacher is guiding the child to resolve the problem. So those are the things we're going to focus on this one.
Oh, you didn't? How come? Did you come in early today?
Yeah. And I went to walk, and then Olivia was running. And Olivia just got right in front of me for her to sign her name in front of me.
Oh, so that upset you a little bit?
And Andrea came and upset me too.
We just had a little rough morning because we weren't first.
Oh, it's hard, huh?
It's hard.
Not always being first.
Sometimes when people are around you and someone right in front of them, and they're in the green room, and they come to the purple room, and there's a line leader,
Yeah.
and they walk right in. And someone walks right in before
Do you get cut? They run in before you when you're line leader. That upsets you too. Sometimes you gotta let your friends know, though, right? You can use your words and talk to them.
I'm trying.
You're trying. I've seen you try, and I've seen it work with you, right? When you use your words with friends. Did you sign in yet? You want to go sign in together? No? Okay.
So in this, you saw that the teacher was responding to the boy who was upset, and she was doing it in a very soothing manner. And she had talked to him about it. You saw the stroking of the head. You know, there's a little bit of physical affection there, and she acknowledges his feelings about how he was upset about the child cutting in front of him. And it's hard, you know, a lot of those very understanding words. It's hard not being always first. So she's repeating a lot of what he is saying. She's not making up anything, but just really repeating what he is saying. She's addressing the problem. So sometimes you gotta help him resolve it. So she is, sometimes you gotta let your friends go, right? I've seen you do it. I've seen it work with you. And you see that he is very comfortable talking with her about his feelings. So it's a great example of the teacher meeting his needs for that emotional support. So now let's move on to the second domain, which is the classroom organization domain. And here are the dimensions that are underneath that. The first one we'll start with is behavior management. So what do we want to see here? So the class tool is measuring that there are clear expectations, that nothing is a surprise. The rules are very clear and they are consistent, which is a key piece. Second one is that the teacher is being proactive. So, before we talked about addressing the problems, and here we are anticipating it and keeping it from escalating. And key is that the teacher is being low in their reaction. And even when something is frustrating, that we're keeping that even keel attitude towards things. And the other piece is that monitoring the classroom, even if we are doing something else, we know what's going on. on the other side of the classroom. And, again, because you form those relationships. So that first domain was about that, emotional support. So we formed those relationships with these kids. So now we know, who the ones are, or which, areas in the classroom are the ones to keep an extra eye on. The next one is redirection of those behaviors. So, instead of saying, again, going back to that positive language. So we do not want to say no's, and we really want to get rid of those words, but what can we do instead? So very, very subtle ways to redirect, and that it's being efficient. So if the problems keep coming up, then we know that it's not being very efficient, and we may need to go back and address the issue because there may be something else going on that keeps bringing it up. And then the final one is, this is where we're really looking at the student behavior. So if you have really noticed, nothing is focused on the students, of the children. They are really focused on what we as the teachers in the classroom are doing to ensure behaviors. So this is the only place where really the student behavior is measured. The positive, of course, is looked at, for the cooperation and et cetera in the emotional support domain. But any concerns, this is really the only place where it's measured. So the focus is not on the children's behavior, but it's on what we are doing as teachers to ensure success for all children. So here, that escalating that we talked about can really be measured here as well, where, there's one or two, little spats may happen, but we're not seeing it happen over and over again. And frequent compliance really refers to the fact that the children know the rules of the classroom and they're just going along with it. So the next dimension is productivity. And what we're looking for here is that we are maximize the learning time, not too much wait times. Children have choices when they're finished, so they may have to do, one particular thing. It's small group time, but afterwards that they have a choice to go and do other things. So, it's not saying every single activity has to be multiple, but the children have that you have multiple options for every single activity, but the fact that the children have choices in walking away from it and doing something else if they choose not to, of course, is very important in their confidence building. If you do have, to take the attendance, to send the lunch list in, whatever it is, that's being completed in a very efficient manner. And of course, you may have disruptions with other teachers walking in, other adults, or children being dropped off at different times. And how are we ensuring that those disruptions are being handled in a very effective way? Okay, the next one is, this is where we talked about we kind of indicated a little bit of this earlier, which is that the students know what they're doing. So because of that, you do not see much wandering. So the well-oiled machine, they know after this comes, after this, activity, then the next one comes. They have, it's very predictable. Transitions, the big transitions that many people struggle with. We really want it to be brief. And the key with this is that there are learning opportunities within. So, is there singing when they're in line? Is there, just some type of movement activity or something to keep those children engaged? Whatever it is that you're doing, because sometimes lines have to happen, and you may have a classroom that has no bathrooms and you have to go out of the classroom. So children do have to travel in a group. So that involves a lot of wait time, but how are you keeping the children engaged during those times? How are you making the best of the situation? Right, preparation, again, your materials are ready and accessible. So children are not having to ask you for, instruments that are up high or markers and paints that are, inaccessible, that they do have choices. If they want extra, of course, they're going to be in the cabinets or somewhere else, but that we are ready to go, that they have access to it, and also that you are ready to go with lessons, knowing what your activities are and just being prepared with all of your materials and ready to engage with the children. Okay, so the final one is instructional learning formats. And what this is really focusing on the children's engagement in whatever activities that are happening in the classroom. So the first one is effective facilitation. So this is where we are looking at how how the children are engaged in the classroom, right? So the teacher is actively facilitating activities. You're asking those questions to get them involved in that. You see that it is a hard concept for them to grasp, but how are you getting them, essentially hooked into that? Variety of modalities and materials refers to having many different ways of doing things. So your circle time is not just about having a book in your hand in front of the children, but what other ways can we ensure that the children are participating in this? Maybe everybody has a character cut out in their hand and they're participating in the storytelling, or if you are doing just one book, at other times, do you have other activities and materials that are plentiful? So ensuring that, it's not just one type of thing, one way of delivery, and it's very hands-on. The student interest is measured here. Is it fun? Are the children interested, and are they actively participating in it? And clarity of learning on objectives. So this is where do the children understand the point of the lesson? And you can do something like, do you remember yesterday when we talked about different materials that houses are built with? And then you go into your next lesson. So this is a great way to kind of reorganize their minds and bring them into focus. So we're really, children can be definitely focused in a very subtle way to bring them back to what your focus is. It doesn't have to be a very, it can be done in a very subtle way. It's not to be very obvious that you are trying to bring them in. So these are the 3 dimensions within the classroom organization domain. So just like last time, we're going to watch a video that focuses on, that is a good example of the behavior management. So this one is called Helping Children Work Cooperatively. And as I am queuing up the screen, just these are the things that we're going to be focused on this one. We're going to look at the multiple strategies that the teacher is using to help the children cooperate. We are going to be looking at how the teacher is communicating with the children very clearly. And we are also going to be looking at how the teacher is effectively helping them resolve their problems. So this one is a little longer, so go ahead and have a look. I will turn the closed captioning on.
Teamwork. Let me see you work together with the puzzle. Let's see. See how they're working together?
Yeah.
Look at their faces. They're happy. They're not fighting. Fatima, can you help someone with a puzzle? Then we're going to read our pumpkin book.
What are you like? See you.
Hey, Sus, are you going to help with the puzzle?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Esa es mía. Aunque no. Aunque sí, esta es mía. No, no.
Están ayudando, Lizzy.
Sí, pero te voy a ayudar a ti, ¿ok, Janet? Espérate, vamos a hacer esto. ¿Y Jesús puede ayudar? Sí. No. Okay.
He's helping Natalie now. Let's put the puzzle on the table because Alex is almost finished. Then we're going to start circle time. Litzy and Fatima, let's put the puzzle on the table. Jeanette, can you put it on the table? Thank you. We can finish it when we're done.
Apúrate, por favor.
Just Alex? Almost finished, Alex? Okay, we'll wait for you. Lindsay and Fatima, can you come over to the rules? Because I see arguing over here. Let's go over to the rules. I want to show you our rules. Come on over. Leave the puzzle pieces. Let's go over to the rules. What's that say? Do you remember? Let's say the words together. Let's, Fatima. Teamwork. Look at their faces. Are they arguing? No, they're happy. They're working together. Lindsay, you too. Come on over. Because you were arguing too. Teamwork. We're helping each other. We're not taking the pieces away from each other. We're helping. Thank you, Lindsay. Now you gave her the puzzle piece. Jesus is your friend. Is he helping you with the puzzle? Is he doing teamwork? You're doing teamwork together.
Okay, so here we saw that the teacher had very clear expectations in her language, in language that the children understood very clearly. And she's reinforcing the rules by pointing to the picture, and that board obviously has many different images and words of children working cooperatively. So you see another management style there with using the poster board and the rule chart. And then she is closely monitoring the children. You can see her right in the back to prevent any misbehavior. And she's, also helping with the other children cleaning up as well. So again, very productive in her management. And the misbehavior is being reduced by taking the children to that chart and giving them specific examples of what they need to do to make sure that they are following the rules, the classroom rules. And there's a lot of positive, language. You hear, thank you, Lindsay. Now you gave her the puzzle piece. You're doing teamwork together. And we, of course, see that the children are behaving in a very appropriate way after the meeting. Is the expectation that we are hoping, of course. And you can trust that in this classroom, the chances of that happening when they go back, that they're going to be working cooperatively, that is probably very likely. So, and then we also, so again, a lot of great examples of the teacher being very productive and expressing those classroom roles very clearly. And that you can obviously tell that the children are used to this type of approach in the classroom. Okay, so that is our second domain, which was the classroom management. And now we are ready to move into the third one, which focuses on the instructional support. So just take a moment to read this little poem. So I think as early childhood educators, we all definitely know this, and it really becomes this hard battle that we have to fight, especially with our older, the 5-year-olds, to ensure that they are quote unquote ready for school. But we know that the focus is really working on those skills that we've already talked about, is that emotional support, is that emotional piece of it. And however, with that being said, we do want them to be independent thinkers. And that really is the focus of the instructional format. So it's not necessarily that we're learning, teaching them how to read or teaching them how to identify their letters and their numbers. However, it is about them being able to really figuring out things for themselves. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move into the instructional support. So the first dimension is concept development. So what do we mean by that? So this is where we are looking at the children's thinking. So, how are they being pushed to think, on a higher level from their previous understanding? And the analysis and reasoning is that first indicator there. And what we're looking at really here is that the teacher is using the discussions within the activities to encourage that the children are analyzing and reasoning what's happening here. And that it's very intentional. So this is where you would hear your why and how questions, not necessarily just identifying things because they know that this is the color red, but let's talk about what other things are red. Or let's talk about why is this car moving faster on this type of a ramp versus the other one. So really getting them to think beyond their abilities, getting them to that next level is what we're wanting to see here. Creating and brain. So this is where we are looking for children to be able to come up with their own ideas. I wonder where we can put these plants to help it grow. It might be a plant that needs to be in the shade. It might need to be a plant that really needs full sun. So really helping them come up with those ideas, to really helping them brainstorm. Great ways of doing this is definitely on a chart where you're writing all these different amazing ideas that the children are coming up with as a group. Third one is, how are you connecting this to their previous knowledge? So, they're already coming in with so many things that they know, and how are you linking the new concept to what they already know? How do you make that connection for them? Because some of these concepts are completely new, but there's going to be one piece of it that they may already have. So how are you connecting that for them? And then connecting it to the real world. So things definitely make more sense when they can relate to it. So if you're, say, for example, talking about the snow, that fell, and a child just moved from the tropics, how do you make it very real to them? Maybe you compare it to the rain, and then you think of, you just, change it to making it make more sense for them. So it really needs to be applicable to their lives. Okay. So after concept development, and just to kind of go back, the concept development, quality feedback, these are the instructional support domain. These are the tough ones. The other ones, a lot of it is, we do it because we know how, how to relate to children. We know how to meet their emotional needs. We can, do all that. But especially the concept development and quality feedback ones are the ones that even your most experienced, veteran teachers really have. It's just an ongoing learning process for everybody. So, but again, as we talked about before, we really want you to think about the times that you had that light bulb go off on a child, and you could see that it made sense to them. So those were the ways that you were connecting those concepts to make sense for them. So know that these are not, they may seem kind of tough, but you really are doing a lot of this in your classroom already. So quality of feedback, the first part, so this is really how is the teacher responding to the child's learning. So previously we talked about the child's thinking and really helping them to think, and on a deeper level. Now we're looking at how are you responding to those thoughts and those concept understandings. So the first indicator here is scaffolding. So you're building on their understanding. It's I wonder what will happen if we put this on top of the other block. What do you think may happen? You're maybe trying to help the child build a stronger foundation, or maybe using smaller blocks on top of the big one so it doesn't topple over. So those are little hints you're giving them so they can keep being successful in what they're doing. feedback loops. So this is where, that back and forth conversations are happening. So kind of if you think about it like a tennis match, so, somebody throws the ball, or the ball's hit, and then the other person is, hitting it back, and you're going back and forth. So when you're having those conversations with those kids, you're not just responding to one thing that they've asked you and then you're moving on. But what you're doing is you're being right there with them and ensuring that they can be, that they have a full understanding of what's happening. Of course, you won't be able to do this all the time, every time, because of the number of children you're focused on. But just the fact that the children know that you are available for them to have these conversations, and that you are having those conversations, and you are following up with them with those appropriate questions to keep them thinking about it. So maybe, you had a morning activity, and a lot of these back and forth exchanges happened. And then at lunch, you are also following up with those questions as well. Really helps that child get very involved in their learning. Prompting through the process is what we're looking at, is that you are providing that additional information so they can understand, to help them with their understanding. So you are affirming that the specific feedback, I'm sorry, I was jumping ahead there, that you are giving them that rationale for their responses and for their actions. So, oh, this is why you were thinking this, and giving them that reason. The child's like, oh yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. So you're helping those thoughts, being put into words for them. Providing information. So this is where you're giving that additional information to clarify, something that is happening about, let's go back to that snow example. You see those dark clouds in the sky, and when it's, and the moisture buildup is happening, and the reason it's snowing now instead of rain is because it's so cold outside. So you're giving that extra information so they can make sense of it. And specific feedback, this is where we're looking at hearing words such as not just good jobs, and but it's very specific to what it is that child was saying. Oh, you chose to put the car with you chose to put the big wheels on the car to see if that was going to move faster than the small wheels. So you're really giving them a specific feedback on what it is that they were doing. And here is where we are, not wanting to just hear good jobs and way to go, but we are being very specific in what it is that we are acknowledging, what exactly that the child did that was so good. And we do that because that encourages them to keep doing it more. It really builds up their confidence. Right, so the next dimension after quality of feedback is language modeling. And language modeling is where we want to, hear those social conversations that we talked about earlier, where we really want to see more of that real conversations. And this back and forth exchange is really those social conversations, not that in-depth conversation you were having, in that quality feedback. The second one is open-ended questions. So, we talked about those why and how questions. This is where we want to see more of that. Great starters, sentence starters for these are, I wonder if, or I wonder how, then you really are making it open so that there's not just one answer. Because what happens if the child gets that answer incorrectly? They are going to be not feeling so great about themselves, and that is definitely not what we want to see, in a classroom or with any relationships. Repetition and extension. What we're seeing here is that, we talked about putting the child's feelings into words. So this is kind of that same thing. Is we are talking about really just extending on the language that the child has demonstrated. So an example of this may be, I'm sorry, just give me a second. Okay, so example of this may be, asking them, well, how do you know that that this is happening? And if a child says, well, I was looking at the thing that tells us what the heart does. Oh, you mean the stethoscope. So you're just kind of adding those words in there for them because they know what that thing is, but not quite, the word. So here's a great way for you to just interject all those amazing words to them. And then, for your younger child, that they may say, this is so-and-so's coat. Oh, you found the blue coat in the cubby. It belongs to Rafi over there. So, you're really just adding those extra big words or extra descriptive words to help the child build their vocabulary. Self and parallel talk is a great way of increasing those words, especially when we have all those managerial tasks that we talked about earlier. Oh, I am taking attendance right now, so we can let the front office know how many lunches we need. And now you are involving the children in your managerial tasks. So it kind of goes into, we talked about how many of these things work together. So this is a great way of you giving them all this vocabulary and description of what you're doing, and also having them being involved in the classroom. So, and you're building this relationship with the children. So great way to do multiple things in one. So, this is a great time to kind of point out all these things does not have to happen individually. They're all happening together. But it's just the fact that we are doing it intentionally. Okay, the final one is that advanced language. Again, if you are talking, and having all those social conversations, and if you are like me, then, I describe myself, what I'm doing, I talk to myself, which is actually a wonderful thing when I was in the classroom, because the kids can hear the thoughts in my head, and also the words that are being used, the quote unquote adult words. So now they are being exposed to many different ideas and different words that they normally wouldn't if I did not do that. So great way to make multiple things happen at one time, and really demonstrate good language modeling. So these are all the dimensions and indicators in the class tool. So as you can see, a lot of this is things that you're doing in the classroom already. If not, you've thought about it and you just haven't got around to it. And this is a great way for you to start practicing and start focusing your intentional teaching. Okay, so the final video is going to take us to, let me just pull up this video. It is promoting thinking skills in a discussion about books. So just give me 1 second to pull up the video. Right. So as you are watching this video, what we want you to be focused on is watching how the teachers is asking open-ended questions and leading the discussion, and how she's helping the children classify the books, right?
Is this an information book? Why not? Tell me why. Tell me why this is a story. Why is this a fiction story? Who can tell me? Amelia, why is this a fiction story?
Because animals don't paint.
Because animals usually don't paint. You're right.
Elephants do.
They could hold it with their trunk. So maybe we'd have an information book about that. Why else can you tell me that this is not an information book? That it is a fiction book? Why else is this a fiction book? How do you know? Thea? How else do you know that this is a fiction book?
Animals don't live in real houses.
Animals don't live in real houses. They might have shelter and protection like in caves, but they don't live in houses like this. Do they live in houses?
Yeah.
No, not like we live in houses.
Like their pets go inside their house.
Some owners let some pets go inside. Would you let a pig go inside your house usually? Not typically. Sometimes there are small pet pigs that people will. Do you think this is a moose? Would you let that go, this beast go inside your? No. Let's read. You could have a guinea pig. It is a much smaller pig. You do have a guinea pig.
So a lot of wonderful things happening in this classroom, as you could see. So you hear the teacher asking those open-ended questions. Why is this a fiction story? And that type of question really helped them to have this amazing conversation about the, about the animals that are in the book and where do they live, etc. So a great opening for that conversation. And then you heard the teacher ask the children to come up with their own ideas. How else do you know that this is a fiction book? It's a very specific question, but the ideas that the children are coming up with is their own. And then there were so many connections to the children's lives. So one child said, but owners let their pets go into their house. So then they started talking about how this one child does have a pig or a guinea pig. So very strong examples of the indicators that we've talked about. All right, so wrapping up. So as we spoke about in many of the examples that were given, this can be really done throughout the classroom, throughout the day. It is not just in center time that we want to see all of this happening, obviously. And we don't want to see children cooperating only when they are in free play time, but we really want to see them working together all the time and seeing everything happen throughout the day. Some things may not happen throughout the day, of course, but it really can, based on how the classroom is set up. So there's, of course, many different approaches. So things to think about as you move forward is just think about what are your classroom rules and expectations, and are you making those clear for the children? How do you create that positive learning environment for them? How are you helping them establish those strong relationships with each other and yourself? And going along with that classroom rules and expectations, how are you managing your time and their behavior and engagement? And really, if we have those things really together, then we can focus on sitting down with them. And one of the common things that we hear is, I don't have time to sit with every single child to really help them engage and develop these concepts. Is so this is where we may want to look back at what are our rules and the end of this session. And please join us for the other sessions if you do work with the other groups. Thank you so much for participating in the grant.